Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. In today's episode, I'm going to do a look back of the last 6 years with two of our first employees here at Hope and Healing. But before we jump into that, just a quick message about some of the upcoming services we're offering here at Hope and Healing.
Hey mamas, whether you are preparing for or recovering from childbirth, this 6-week progressive series coming soon to Hope and Healing is for you. Join Carlin Davensizer this September for pelvic floor physical therapy classes, curated especially for our pre- and postpartum community members. If you experience pelvic floor symptoms, diastasis, or pelvic, hip, and back pain, the movements and exercises will be beneficial for your core and pelvic floor. To register or ask questions, email admin@hopehealingtherapy.com.
So welcome back and welcome to the podcast. I have my very first two employees with me on the episode today. I have Anastasia and Meredith, and I'm so glad to have you guys here with me today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the last 6 years has looked like for each of us, and maybe even share a little bit about what we hope for the future for Hope and Healing. So I will kind of get us started with my story, and some of you on the podcast have heard my story before about how I got to where I am. So I'm going to keep it brief and then let Anastasia and Meredith share theirs. But, you know, I don't know that I've ever said this on the podcast before, but I really didn't ever want to do counseling as a career when I decided to become a social worker. But I found myself in a place where there was a need in the community for trauma therapists, and I had the skill and the ability and the opportunity to kind of drop everything and create Hope and Healing. And it started out as just me. And for about, 6 months or so, I was answering the phones and checking the emails and seeing the clients, and it didn't take very long. Pretty sure by December I was full and needed someone else to help see those clients. And that's where, Anastasia, you came along. So do you want to share a little bit about kind of how you found yourself here at Hope and Healing?
Sure, yeah. So I came on in February of 2019, and I came on as a part-time employee. So prior to that point, I had worked in a variety of different settings. I spent some time with the schools. I worked at a local hospital. I worked in a public health settings. It was nice because every couple of years I would do something a little bit different. And then when Jen started Hope and Healing, she talked about a part-time opportunity, and I thought, wow, that's a really great way to scratch that itch, flex a different set of brain muscles, and go. And so I started out 1 evening a week and then went to 2 evenings a week. And then in 2022, I think, I came on full-time as the clinical director and kind of made that switch, and that's where I've been ever since. So it's been nice. I was in the Leonardtown office for a few years, and now I've been fully virtual for the last year. So it's been really nice to see the growth and kind of be part of the process from the ground up.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think you came over as clinical director in 2020. I feel like that was we're in the midst of COVID. We were at the Courthouse Drive location.
Maybe it's 2021.
Maybe 21.
I was thinking 21. When she said 22, I also thought that was like not, I thought it was before then, so.
I still can't believe that I've been virtual for a year, so I think that, time has just been wonky.
Yeah, time flies, and that weird COVID era was like, what day is it? Who knows, right? I mean, we had moved into we had expanded from one office where the three of us played the biggest game of Office Tetris ever. And then we went into the Courthouse Drive location, and we were there for, 2.5 months. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden it was like, we have this office and none of us can work in it. So this is interesting. But yeah, so Anastasia, you joined us in February of 19, and then fast forward to September of that same year, and then that was when you joined the team, right, Meredith?
Yep. Yep, September 10th, I think. I actually remember the date. I don't know if you remember, Jen, do you remember like a long time ago us talking about starting a private practice? So, we worked together. We all had talked about like starting a private practice together because that was always like an eventual goal of mine, that I wanted to be in private practice. And at that time, I don't know how many years ago that was. It was over 10 years ago, like maybe 15. It was a long time ago.
You remember the name that we picked?
It was something very similar to Hope and Healing. I don't remember the exact, it was definitely something about healing. I remember that
it was going to be the Healing House.
There we go. Yeah.
I actually, in my Hotmail, have a folder that is still labeled the Healing House from some of the stuff that we had put together with regards to what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a big, like, eventual goal. And I know it didn't work out then because, I think a bunch of us were just not in the place to be able to kind of take that kind of leap. And obviously it worked out, and obviously that's fine now. But I had always worked in nonprofits. And so the idea of being in private practice and being able to see clients and not have to do any of the other things that come with nonprofit work in terms of like paperwork and grants and all kinds of stuff like that was always really, really appealing. And I got to a place where I felt like, actually I got a text from you when you opened Hope and Healing. So back in 2018. And I thought, all right, I guess maybe this is the time to take the leap. And I think I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I think I'm ready to do this. So.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I was thinking that it was I probably texted you and the other two that we had talked about this Healing House with and said, okay, I'm doing it. And then it was, maybe a little less than a year later that you were like, I think I'm ready to make the jump. So yeah. And at the time we were in our first location and it was just one office, and I would leave and somebody else would come in, and it was, I ended up, once Meredith, you came on, I ended up going to my church on, I guess, Tuesdays and Thursdays so that you could see clients, and I had another place it was quite an interesting year.
You were so accommodating though, honestly, Jen. You were like, you were just like, yeah, I can make it work. We can do it. And we did, but it was really impressive the way it happened though.
I remember Anastasia and I would just leave fidgets and stuff in front of the door for each other, so that we could get prepared for the next session. And then I would tidy up all my stuff and head out so she could run right in and see her clients. It was really interesting. It was wonderful to begin the practice with you guys at the very beginning because there was so much flexibility that was needed. But it was also just such a testament to the way that the community accepted us. And I applaud our local community for saying, you know what, there's this new practice, and removing that stigma for themselves to be able to seek the services that are so needed. And then, like I said, we moved from that one office to an office where we had 3 offices, and then COVID hit and nobody worked there. It was, months of, I went there just because, on my own circumstances, I was living in the basement with my family while we were building a house, and I needed a private place to do sessions. But for the most part, it was just me in that office for, almost a year. And then we had another year there before we came here to where we are now. And that just seems like a huge leap for me.
I remember looking at the Mowgli Street property and talking about like, oh my gosh, there's 8 offices. Is this too many? What does this look like? Will we fill it? How does this work? And now we're in the midst of constructing another office because we have completely filled the space that we have. And it's just amazing, again, over time to see the evolution and see where the growth has been. But again, I just remember having the conversation of, can we fill 8 offices? What are we going to do? And now we're back to Tetris, and people are high-fiving in the hallway as the day person comes and the night person comes in. And it's just cool to see, again, it just happening on a larger scale.
I just remember specifically with COVID, like deciding to, okay, we're definitely going to do this, like close the office and go completely virtual, and how nerve-wracking that was to think about like how is this going to affect the company and the business, and are we going to be able to? And now looking back, I think, we were so, understandably given the like unprecedented times and all of that, but we were so busy.
I distinctly remember it was March 17th, and there was an announcement at like noon that the world as we know it was shutting down, and the three of us stood in the hallway in Courthouse Drive and said, what do we do? And we all were like, I think we go home. And we did. Yeah.
I don't think I had ever done a virtual session prior to that. And
I don't think I did either. If I did, it was very few and far between.
it was such a learning curve and figuring it out. And our clients were phenomenal as part of the process with us trying to learn a new system and make it work and how to do therapy virtually. And I mean, I think that it's just been amazing to see the growth in that area. I mean, I think if I had said 5 years ago that I would be fully virtual and only doing virtual sessions, I would have laughed and been like, no way. And now that's the norm. Not for all of us, but for some.
Well, and there was so much learning that came out of that. And partially to see the resilience of our community and how they went with the flow of how things had to work, and we worked through a lot of things with our clients, but also feel like a little bit like as the COVID walls went up, the stigma around mental health, those walls came down. It was like this interesting opposite effect, because I mean, it was shortly thereafter that we had, so many other of our staff started to come in late 20 and into 2021 because we, the community, I just applaud our community for saying that there's tools out there to help us find wellness, and we're going to use those tools. That's just the most incredible part for me. What do you think, Anastasia, has been one of the most exciting things to see in terms of watching our Hope and Healing community grow into what it is today?
I always get really excited to hear, when I was in the area, hear people talking about it. Like when you hear people, when you're at different locations, say talking about therapy openly and talking about where they go, and you hear the name Hope and Healing, and I would just always smile because, it's one of those, it's the word of mouth has just been amazing in terms of how we get the majority of our clients. For the most part, we get a new client and they say, oh, so-and-so told me about it, or my brother or my sister or my mom. And there's so many things that are wonderful about living in a small community, and I think that seeing that growth has been so cool over the last 5 years, almost 6 now. I didn't expect it to grow to the extent that it did, but it just kept growing and kept going and kept going, and seeing our clinicians get full and seeing clients be served and modalities be added, it's been really neat to see.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, because as our clients talk to their friends and their family and their neighbors and their teachers and et cetera, it means they're talking about mental health. It means they're talking about going to counseling. It means they're talking about, taking down their own walls. And that's been really, really cool to see. And I was at the store one day and I was wearing this shirt, my Hope and Healing shirt, plastered across the front of it. And somebody said, oh, Hope and Healing, do you work there? And I said, actually, I'm the owner. And she was like, oh, that is so cool. And, we just had a brief conversation about it. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't know who she was or anything like that, but she had heard about Hope and Healing, and that was really cool, because it's a service that's out there that's being utilized. What about for you, Meredith? What's been cool to watch?
I'm sure this happens to you guys too, but I get a lot of personal requests from friends or friends of friends or family friends and stuff, where people are looking for mental health resources. And it's just always nice to very confidently be able to say that well, I would recommend anybody that works for us, and I have no qualms about that. And there are no caveats. And, if you can get an appointment with somebody in our office, I would feel comfortable with that. I can easily recommend that. So it is nice to be able to be very proud of where you work.
I had the same conversation with somebody yesterday. The question was, if you were going to schedule your daughter with someone, who would it be? And I stopped and thought, anybody. Really. It's the beauty of who we are and what we do too, because, I didn't necessarily share my whole backstory in terms of career, but you guys shared a little bit. And I think that one of the things I think that sets us apart is that we come from lots of different backgrounds. not only personally, but professionally. We have veterans, we have military spouses, we have law enforcement spouses, we have, people that have worked in schools and hospitals and child welfare. And I mean, lots of different experiences. And that just brings a wealth of knowledge and information to us. I could probably go on for days about what I think is unique about Hope and Healing, because everything that we do is very intentional. I had somebody come in who's doing our build out for our renovation right now. And when I went out into the lobby, he was like, I could like fall asleep right now. It's like so chill and zen in here. And that's intentional, right? It's totally intentional from the minute you walk through the door. And, I hope people go away feeling that from, whether they're calling on the phone or they're logging into a telehealth session or they're coming into one of the offices, that they're feeling that it's different. What about for you guys? Meredith, what do you think sets us apart?
I mean, I think the intentional piece is definitely true, that everything we do is very intentional. I think that not only is it a great place that, like I would recommend to anybody and any therapist and anything, like, all the therapists are great, but I think that comes through because we're happy to be working, we're happy to be, we're all well supported. The community at large is good, but our employee community is really good. And I think that makes a huge difference. And it applies to any job, when you're happy in your job, the work that you do is usually better. And I think that comes through a lot for us.
Yeah. What do you think, Anastasia? Both of you have been here from the very beginning. So you've seen the vision and you've seen much of it come to light. So what do you think sets us apart?
I think the personal touch that comes with it. I think that, again, from the beginning, we try to match people with the best fit possible. We look at those little touches of, I'm going to drop a new client card in the mail, and we're going to follow up with a phone call, and we're going to check in and see how your first session went. And I think that seeing that personal touch has been really helpful. And even as we've grown to the size that we are, it's still happening. New client cards are still going out. People are still getting check-ins. We're still making sure that we're matching the best possible way. And if we're not the right fit, we're looking for who would be a good fit for you. And so, I think that we're a wonderful practice, but we want people to get services. And so if we don't have openings, we're going to help you figure out how to find services, because we want you to be the best version of yourself. And so I think that that's another piece that sets us apart, because we're not going to put you on a wait list for 6 months, because we don't want you to wait 6 months. If we can't get you in, we want you to find someone that you can see sooner. And so I think that's another piece that kind of sets us apart from other practices.
Yeah, and Meredith, you made a comment a few minutes ago about, if you can get an appointment with one of our therapists. And so, I'm gonna put it out there for our listeners that openings are few and far between, and we recognize that and we respect that. But I encourage people to consider that making an appointment with a therapist means that you're making a weekly commitment. So if, Tuesday at 10 o'clock is open and you get that Tuesday at 10 o'clock, that means you're in that appointment time indefinitely. It's not like, you go to the dermatologist and, their next available is in 6 weeks, and then you go, and then that's it. It's different with mental health. But it's also part of the reason why we have the alternative services that are available, with bringing on some new yoga classes and pelvic floor therapy and massage. We've got aromatherapy. We're really looking at what are some other services that we can offer, because here's a little something that you could take and use for wellness while you're waiting for that appointment to come available. So I'm really excited I can't believe when this goes on air, we will have celebrated 6 years, it's just crazy to think about 6 years, and how far we've come from one little office to, 2 physical locations plus, fully telehealth therapists. And it's been a really incredible journey to have both of you and the rest of our team along with it. Anything in particular, Anastasia, you're looking forward to in the future?
I'm just excited to see where we go from here. Again, if you would have told me when we started that this is where we would have been, my mind would have been blown. So I can only imagine what it's going to look like in another 5 or 6 years.
What about you, Meredith?
We talked about this, I think, last year at our business meeting, and just the eventual idea of having a bigger center with trails and all kinds of other stuff is very, I have no idea how long it'll take to get there, but it's a very exciting idea when it does happen.
We often tell our clients to say the words, right? Because when you say the words, it becomes real, and then we can make it happen. And the truth of the matter is, that is the vision. Our own place, our own location, walking trails, maybe a dog or two, a little garden to sit in. I don't know. We've got lots of great ideas. So hey, if there's a listener out there that hears this and says that they've got an idea, send it our way, because we are, however we can make ourselves available to the community is really what we want to do. And like you guys both said, having a place where you actually enjoy coming to work and enjoy the work you do and the people that you do it with. So, well, thanks for joining me for this episode today, guys. I really appreciate the fun look back on the last 6 years. And for listeners, we're just excited to have you here as part of our Hope and Healing community. As always, if you have feedback or any ideas you want to share with us, you can always email me, Jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. Feel free to send us a DM on our socials. And thanks for listening. We hope you have a great day.